Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another podcast. Today we're going to talk about the potential finals matchup and the Eastern Conference Finals. There's a dilemma in the NBA right now, and I'm surprised no one is talking about it. Look at all the successful teams in the league. The Lakers, the Nuggets, the Heat, Sixers. What do they all have in common? They have dominant bigs. The Heat could be an exception, but the way that Bam Adebayo plays the game is big. The Heat play the game big. Let's shift our focus here to Boston. Let's say that they come back and they do the historic feat, come back from 3-0 and beat Miami. Who are you going to give the conference finals MVP to? The public is going to go with Tatum. Tatum is doing what he should be doing, and that is scoring the ball, rebounding the ball, playmaking, and being the leader of the team. Now let me ask you another question. Who has the best plus-minus on the entire Boston team? It's Robert Williams. If you closely watch the Sixers series, especially from Game 6 on up until this point, we are now at Game 6 in the conference finals. When the Celtics go small, it's very obvious they have a lot of shooting, yes. That is valuable, yes. But when Robert Williams is in that game, that team takes another step up. He protects the rim. He rebounds the ball. He's the only true big man on that roster. Al Horford has only been valuable so far in this playoffs when guarding Embiid. And I cannot tell you why that works, but it does. Robert Williams is the only true center on that team. And Joe Mazzulla, he's made it far. He's shown that he can somewhat coach up until this point. At least the Celtics didn't lay down and get swept. But if he could play Tatum at center, he would. He would go as small as possible. The only team that I believe in NBA history that has ever been successful running a somewhat small lineup is the Golden State Warriors. But that's because they had the greatest shooters of all time. We look at Boston, and we see a team that feels like it's run by the young stars. It feels like Joe Mazzulla is a player's coach. He, like I said, I will say it again, if he could play Tatum at center, he would. He always wants to go small. With that strategy in mind, let's look at Denver and LA. Denver beat a Phoenix Suns team on their last leg. There was no DeAndre Ayton for, I believe, a couple of games of that series. That killed him. Jokic did whatever he wanted inside, scoring especially, because they did not have anyone who could guard Jokic. Let's shift to the Lakers series. What do you see? You see a small team versus a big team. Anthony Davis went up and down throughout most of that series. He'd have a great game followed by a bad game. But in that great game that he has, 20 rebounds. That's something special. And they won that series because of Anthony Davis and LeBron James playing big and attacking the rim. That is the Warriors' weakness. A couple of years ago, Klay Thompson would have been able to give you 25 points easy. He could not do that this year. Jordan Poole, even last year, was able to do what Klay used to be able to do somewhat. At least him and Klay and Wiggins were scoring the ball like they used to. And then Curry is doing the normal Steph things. Now that they got old and they couldn't score as well, it felt like it was just Steph on that court versus the rest of the Lakers. They over-dominated them with their size. And then they ran into Denver, who I believe they do shoot a lot of threes, but they work from the inside out. What does that tell you? You have to have a dominant center in order to be successful and win championships. You can make it to the conference finals and win a couple games with guys like Tatum and Brown running your team. But let's look at the past finals matchups. In the exception of last year, because once again, Boston played a Miami team that always has the heart and the culture to make it far, but they run out of talent. That's all it is. They just run out of talent. Boston is the better team for sure. But when they play big, when Robert Williams is in there, they are successful. His plus-minus is off the charts. So how can you tell me that he should not have a starting position in that lineup? He started all throughout the playoffs just last season. They made it to the finals and were 2 games away from winning the championship. So once again, I relate to you. Who's the real conference finals MVP? It's either Cody Martin or Robert Williams. Those are the 2 most valuable players on those 2 teams right now. The reason the Miami Heat won the first 3 games is because of Cody Martin. He came out of nowhere and scored the ball. Typically, Miami is going to put up their normal numbers. Jimmy Butler will be scoring the ball. Bam Adebayo will be scoring the ball and rebounding. And then their defense is also another key component to their team. When Boston had their backs against the wall in Games 4 and 5, they shot the lights out. Is that going to happen again in Games 6 and 7? The odds of them 4 games in a row shooting out of their mind, having 4 players scoring 20-plus points, is highly unlikely. Game 6, they will have Gabe Vincent back, and the Miami Heat will win Game 6 at home. Unless Robert Williams, all he has to do is establish himself in the paint, taking away Miami's chance to drive the ball, forcing these undrafted role players to make shots. I would rather make that my game plan, force Miami to make threes, rather than giving them stuff inside. Whenever they do that, Boston will be successful. That's exactly what they did during all of Game 6 against Philadelphia. They started Robert Williams, and he played a lot of minutes. I don't know why Joe Mazzulla always takes him out and doesn't play him enough minutes. Maybe that's his health. I'm not in the locker room. I cannot make that decision. I don't know all the details. All I know is the results. When I'm watching these games and Robert Williams is inside blocking shots, getting rebounds, and occasionally actually scoring the ball, Boston is one of the best teams remaining. Without him, they're a small, it just feels like an all-star team is playing the game. And they just so happen to have a Marcus Smart, like the Warriors had a Draymond Green, a guy that does all the dirty work. Marcus Smart and Al Horford do the dirty work. That's how they make it this far. Not by Tatum and Brown scoring. It's all the other pieces. I'm so frustrated with today's media not really getting down to the key of these games. You have to be big. You have to be. That's why I believe whether Boston comes back or not, I don't believe they will, but let's say they get faced up against Denver in the finals. Jokic is going to have his way unless Robert Williams plays 35 minutes a game, which I highly doubt Joe Mazzulla will do because it seems like he is very, very cautious of going big, which once again I do not understand at all. The reason they won Game 6 in Philadelphia, or else their season's over, is because of Robert Williams. In Game 7 as well. Philly just laid an egg. It is what it is. But Boston was able to blow them out because they were not able to make shots, and Robert Williams made an impact. But in today's world, Jason Tatum is going to be getting all of the credit right now, but he's doing what he should be doing. He should be scoring 30 points and having 10 boards and 5 assists. That's what he should be doing. Jaylen Brown is a number 2. He should be scoring 20-plus points a game, which he is not playing up to the level he was a year ago, which is concerning because he is still a young player and he has the experience now. But when he got to play against the Warriors, there was no paint. When he got to play the Warriors in the finals, there was no paint defense. He was kind of able to ISO and shoot from the elbow and make those mid-range shots because he's good at it. You go up against Miami and Philly, where they run a bigger team, Jaylen Brown struggles. They play aggressive, but he struggles. Jaylen Brown could be averaging 30 a game if he was able to be as aggressive as he could and have free reign in the paint. Miami does not let that happen, except for the last 2 games, which I find very disappointing. Maybe Miami just ran out of gas and talent right now. All they have to do is win 1 out of the next 2, and they're in the finals. Now, once they play Jokic, I feel that their talent is going to hurt them, and it might be a quick series for Denver. But at least they made it to the finals. And if they played against the Lakers, it would be the same story. Whatever team had come out of the West, the 2 most dominant bigs with the most complete teams around, Anthony Davis and the Lakers, and Nikola Jokic and Denver. Bigs win championships, not shooting threes. Because no one is the Golden State Warriors. They are something different. They were something different. Do not follow what the Warriors are doing, and that is exactly what Boston is doing. They are following the Warriors' style of play to a T. Jaylen Brown is not Klay Thompson when it comes to shooting. Jason Tatum can shoot, but he's not Steph Curry, the number 1 of that team. Marcus Smart is their Draymond Green, but he plays point guard. He's out of the paint, so he's able to lock down the perimeter, but when it comes to the inside, if Joe Mazzulla chooses to play Robert Williams and play big, they will be successful. When he doesn't, they're going to get run off the floor, just like they did against Miami. In the first 3 games of that series, they went down 3-0, lost the first 2 games at home. Unacceptable. When it's that obvious, it just look at the stat sheet of all of the Boston playoff games and look at Robert Williams' plus minus. That is such an important stat. That means not just how you play, but that's more about how the entire team plays when you are on the floor. Robert Williams, if they come back and win, is my conference finals MVP. He's the only reason they got past Philadelphia. Now let's shift gears to an even bigger picture in the NBA, and that is the NBA coaching situation that's going on here. You should be outraged right now that Monty Williams and Mike Budenholzer got fired from their organizations. Let's look at the Phoenix series against Dallas a year ago, Game 7 at home, and Game 6 at home against Denver this year. I don't know what else the coach on the sideline can do if your players don't hit shots and clearly are out-talented in every facet of the game. How are the two coaches just 2 years ago who made the finals are now fired and don't have a job? There is a problem. These owners of these NBA teams just have to fire the coach immediately because it's just easier to get rid of the coach than trading players. Why do you have to fire Monty Williams and Mike Budenholzer? They were both in the finals just 2 years ago with Phoenix has a different team. Milwaukee has the exact same team. Whose fault is it that their roster in Milwaukee is getting too old now? They're a year past what they were. Everyone besides Giannis. How is that Mike Budenholzer's fault? He is not making the trades. He is not making the roster moves. That is the owner of the Milwaukee Bucks. How can you possibly just fire this man and make him look for another job right now when he won the championship just 2 years ago? 2 years. If Giannis was healthy in this first round against Miami, they may have gone to 7 against Miami, but they would have won. They would have won. They would have beat Miami. They probably would have beat New York, and then they would be in the conference finals again against Boston. And I believe that their size would have overtaken Boston, and they would be in the finals right now. How can you possibly fire Mike Budenholzer? It enrages me that he got 2 years removed from a championship and is now fired and doesn't have a job. Let's shift back to Monty Williams. Did he make the Kevin Durant trade? No, he did not. I guarantee you he was probably happy about getting Kevin Durant. Oh, we got Kevin Durant. Oh, man. We have one of the best rosters in the NBA. All it would take for this Phoenix team to fall apart is just one injury from one of those top three guys in that team. Because without Chris Paul or Devin Booker or Kevin Durant, they're one of the worst teams in the league because they have no depth. Did Monty Williams trade away Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson? He did not. He probably approved of the trade because it's Kevin freaking Durant. Respectfully so. But then they ran into a Denver team who is an all-around better team than Phoenix. That's just how it was. So once again, how can you blame Monty Williams? Even if they won Game 6 at home and forced a Game 7, did you think they would win Game 7 in Denver? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. As you can see, this Denver team is for real. They are about to hoist the Larry O'Brien trophy. That's the team that they lost to. A year ago, Game 7 against Dallas. Yes, you can blame Monty Williams. Yes, you can. He is the coach. They should have been better prepared for that Game 7 matchup. They had the better roster than Dallas did. They had the better player, but Phoenix did have the better roster. They had a full depth lineup with a emerging star in Devin Booker, and they played well together. They did. They won 60 games and had the number 1 seed. You can blame Monty Williams for that. But why do you hire coaches in the NBA? So they can successfully bring your team to their highest potential. Monty Williams did that in the regular season and all the way up until that Dallas series. Does he deserve to be fired after one mistake? And that was Game 7 against Dallas. I would not call this series against Denver a mistake. They had all the odds against them because of this Kevin Durant trade. Arguably, I think they would have been better off without making that trade. They would have still lost to Denver, but that's because they would have been probably the 4 seed again as well, and they would have just been playing against the champions, the future champions of the league. You cannot blame Monty Williams and fire him just because he's the easy option to blame. I believe he did all he could in that Denver series, especially when DeAndre Ayton went out. They had Jock Landale at center trying to stop this two-time MVP Nikola Jokic. Jock Landale. Can you tell me where he went to college? Can you tell me how tall he might be? Or his weight? Can you give me his stats? No, you can't. I cannot either. You expect Monty Williams to win a playoff series when in the last couple games, elimination games for them, they had a guy named Jock Landale trying to guard Nikola Jokic. No, let's just fire him. Let's fire Monty Williams. It's his fault. It's his fault, right? It was just 1 year where he disappointed. Before that, no one out of their right mind expected that Phoenix team in 2021 to make the finals. Maybe it did after the end of the regular season where you saw how many games they won and they ended up being the number 1 seed. But once again, Monty Williams brought them that. They were nothing before that. They were nothing for years and years and years. And he comes in, turns that entire team around, and gets them to the finals, and they went up 2-0. Giannis is just Giannis Antetokounmpo. He dropped in Game 6 a 50-point double-double. There's not really much you can do about that as a guy sitting on the sideline. You're not defending Giannis. Your players that the GM put on the floor are guarding Giannis, not Monty Williams himself. He did the best he could to stop him, and it was too much. They lost. But Phoenix, they will take that any day. I'm a Cavaliers fan. I would take a finals appearance any day. I wouldn't care if we'd lose. We made it to the finals. We have proven nothing without LeBron James. If we made it to the finals, that would be perfectly okay with me. And I'm sure most of the Phoenix fans thought the same. How can you fire Monty Williams? Something needs to be done about the GMs and the owners of these organizations. They are the ones that need to be punished, not these coaches being dropped like flies. Dropped like flies. There is one almost every day, it feels like. Doc Rivers is the exception. He has proven through his resume, he's had enough tries. He has proven to everyone with multiple teams, multiple organizations, multiple teams that he's faced in the playoffs, he cannot win the big games. He's proven that, and I think after, I don't even know how many years he's been in the league, but he has had one of the most Game 7s he's ever played. There's no one even close, and he's like, 3-10, 4-10 in those Game 7s. That is enough, I believe, to say, yes, you can fire him. You can. Phoenix, on the other hand, when they blew it to Dallas, they at least made it to the Game 7. Philadelphia didn't make it to the Game 7. They lost the Game 6 and then just had to play a Game 7. And then, oh boy, they were on the road again. And Embiid laid an egg. Harden laid an egg. Yes, you can blame Doc Rivers for that. He is the only, I believe, reasonable firing in the NBA right now. Everyone else, it's just, oh, we didn't win the championship just this year, so we need to make a coaching change. It's the easiest thing you can do. Now, we are seeing, just 2 years removed, both coaches in the finals are now fired. What if Joe Mazzulla gets fired? I don't think he deserves it, but if he loses in Game 6 to Miami tomorrow night, he might get fired, even though his team made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Eric Spoelstra is showing everyone right now that he is by far the most valuable coach in the league, and it's not even close. It's not even close. Not even close. Miami is successful, it feels like, almost every single year in the league because they kept with the same coach throughout this whole thing. They had LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. And then they shifted to just the Dwayne Wade era again, the older Dwayne Wade era. They won playoff games with arguably a pretty crappy roster. Now we're shifting in since the bubble. This is still Eric Spoelstra. And what did he do? He has exceeded expectations by far. By far. Greg Popovich has one of the worst rosters in the league. He's had one of the worst rosters in the league for the last 3, 4, 5 years. But San Antonio has the culture to keep him around, and they know how good he is. I bet you Phoenix knows how good Monty Williams is as a coach. He just proved it to you. Those teams, Steve Kerr, another example. The Golden State Warriors fired Mark Jackson and put in Steve Kerr. He's still the coach to this day. Those teams win championships, not the coaches that are being a revolving door in these highly talented rosters. They don't win championships. Look at the last, 10, 15 years of the finals. Look at the coaches that are winning these. They're all established and good culture organizations. It feels like to me, Phoenix is not a good culture organization. And they just shifted Monty Williams out for no good reason. The Milwaukee Bucks firing of Mike Budenholzer was a shocking one because I thought they had the culture. I'm surprised Giannis was okay, and maybe it wasn't his decision, but I'm surprised he was okay with his championship coach being fired just 2 years after. I believe it's Middleton and Holiday are the problem. It's not Budenholzer. Those guys are getting too old now. They're out of their prime. They don't have enough to win another championship. They just didn't. They needed to get younger and deeper. Also, Middleton had injuries. Is that Mike Budenholzer's fault? Absolutely not. The only finals champion that I can think of where it disproves my point is the Lakers in the bubble, because they won it with, I believe it was Frank Vogel, and he's not there anymore. But that's because the Lakers did have such a bad roster that they started 2-10 this season. I mean, that's a pretty bad team. Now, Darvin Ham came in, and it seems like he is confident and could be, and hopefully will be on that Lakers roster for a while, because he has also proven that he knows how to win, and he knows how to play certain matchups. Played the Warriors and played the Grizzlies. Two very different teams, and was able to beat them both. And then just so happened to run against the NBA champions and lost. They should have won maybe games 3 or 4, yes. But they weren't going to win the series anyway. That's not Darvin Ham's fault. That's just the team he happened to run up against. So this NBA coaching dilemma is getting out of hand. And it needs to be said. These GMs and owners need to be held accountable, not the coaches that they just so happen to keep hiring and firing. I had a dream as a kid to be an NBA coach. I don't want to do that anymore. I would not feel safe whether I signed a 4-year contract or a 1-year contract. I would feel very unsafe with my job. Even if I made it to the conference finals and had a disappointing loss, I could still be fired. Even though I beat out every other team in the Eastern Conference, I could still get fired. That's a problem. That's a problem. GMs and owners need to be held accountable. There needs to be some sort of system in place. I know the NBA is smart enough to make one, where they can hold the GMs and owners responsible for collapses as teams, bad seasons. They should be required. If the coach has shown he can win playoff games, he should stay in that position. And if they fire him, they punish the owner and the GM. Because it's not fair to all of these coaches. Steven Silas, Houston Rockets. He has 2 what feels like 16-year-old super talented guards. They play so young. They just shoot the ball. They don't care about winning. I'm pretty sure Steven Silas would like to be winning games. That's the roster he was given. So how can you punish him for having that roster? I don't think he was trying to lose, whether the organization told him or not. He still coached games to win the games. He got fired because of the roster he was given by the GM and the owner of the team. Now you tell me, is that fair or not? This dilemma needs to be fixed in the NBA, and it needs to be fixed fast.